Hey guys, welcome to Double R Restorations. My name is Russell. If this is your first time visiting the channel, I want to invite you to subscribe and check out the playlist on the Camaro restoration that I call Project Overkill. In this video, we are repairing the accident damage from the driver's side door shell that I missed when I was originally repairing that shell. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, YouTube, so I'm back at it on this repair on the door shell, and I really did not want to get into this brace, so I'm decided to cut around it. I made some reference marks that I'm pretty sure are pretty close between these two door frames. You can see right here I've marked from the edge of the frame up 7 inches. I've used this hinge, corner of the hinge as a reference. I've also used the corner of the brace as a reference. Same thing on this other side. And I've compared, I've measured the peaks here and the peak on this one, and I've got these measurements written down. I've also got my total length written down as it is of right now. I will be measuring the new length and comparing it to the passenger side as we get this piece fitted. What I'm going to do now is just cut on this side, and we'll leave as much material as I can. I'm still going to be forced to deal with some of this damage in here, but I believe once I get all this out of the way, I can hammer and dolly a lot of this. Get it flat to where it'll meet up with our new patch. Now on this particular piece, I've got it marked out as well, and instead of cutting on the inside, I'm going to be cutting on the outside of my cut line. And hopefully that's going to, if I am off on any of these angles, hopefully it's going to allow me to have enough material to where I can sneak up on it. Okay guys, so this is our patch right here, and if we look right here, I've got everything trimmed out, and it's going to fit in there about like that right there, and then we'll be ready to weld it in. So I'm burning this patch in here, and I've got it fitted. I went ahead and tacked it across. Before I go any further, I'm going to remove the clamps and we'll test fit the skin and see how it fits along the edge and everything. Now I am going to run into one particular problem, and I knew it was going to happen. Right in this area, when I pulled it in with these clamps, it tightened it up a lot, And I had a pretty good little gap there at first, but I think where this damage area was just still a little bit high, it closed that gap up. So I'm gonna have to open that gap up. And then did the same thing on the bottom. So I'm gonna have to open that up as well. But overall it fit pretty good. So far so good. This is actually laying up against the skin now. And I actually got plenty of material here that once this folds over, I'll be able to weld it. And everything is looking like we are go for launch on this. There is one issue, and I had that before, and I don't really think it's really an issue. I just need to come in here, and on this little ear here, I just need to take a big hammer and a dolly and move it forward probably about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4. All this other will pull in. I mean, it's pretty tight to pull it in, but it will pull in. But this out here is just a little more pulling than what I would like. I can get the very corner of it, but I think it would be a lot better if I could move this piece just a little bit. So there will be another test fitting. Okay, YouTube, so I've got this patch welded into the door, and I gotta tell you, it was a little bit of a chore. Like I've mentioned, I've never really welded a lot of big stuff. Everything that I've welded, you guys have seen right here on this channel. Mainly just small stuff, 20, 18 gauge sheet metal, stuff like that. This is 14 gauge, and I had a little trouble getting the welder dialed in. So I set it up according to the chart inside the welder, and it actually seemed to work really good. I had cut part of the old door off, the part that we were replacing, and I just practiced around with it with the MIG welder, just running some test beads and everything, and it looked great. But when I went over to weld on the door, it was just, it was too cold. It seemed like it wanted to weld okay, it just didn't have the penetration that I wanted, and had a lot of weld up on top of the metal. The only thing that I could come up with is that door is so massive. There's so much mass there of metal that it was basically just sucking the heat out of it. Because I kept testing the metal just to make sure I wasn't getting too hot, and it wasn't that hot at all. There's some places that penetrated great, but then there was others that, well, actually when I flipped it over, you could still see where the weld seam was. So what I wound up doing was flipping it over on the top side, taking a Dremel tool and cutting a groove in it. And then I turned the machine way up. This was 14 gauge steel, and I welded it on a 10 gauge setting. So I had a welder way up. But I feel pretty good about it. It's welded, it's penetrated now. I have test fit the skin a couple times, and I've made some more adjustments to the metal so that it would fit the door skin a little bit better, and that's what I want to show you. I made some adjustments to the peak area. The measurements still come up right, but I still wanted to just fine tune it just a little bit where the skin would fit a little bit better. Also on the top portion of the door frame, I made some relief cuts so that the metal could be shaped a little bit better to conform the door skin. So here we have the top side pretty much ground down and complete. I did go ahead and leave the full bead in this area. I was actually welding it, and I actually got it up onto this brace in a few places, and then I decided to go ahead and grind it down flat and make a second pass. And I just come up here and hit this brace with it, and I've ground it down some, but I'm going to leave the full bead in here. It'll make it plenty strong, and I'll probably even come in here with a swipe of seam sealer. Just blend it in okay. It doesn't really matter. Once the skin's on, nobody's going to see this, but what I'm looking for in this repair is to just get the shape, and it's looking a whole lot better than it used to. So my next step is to flip this over. I've got some grinding to do where I adjusted this peak, and also right in here I still got to do the finish grind on the seam on the bottom side. Okay guys, so we're getting this patch ground down, and pretty much got the inside angle done, and the part where the flange is going to fold over and mate to the door frame. See the weld area here, and then I had also made some adjustments to the peak on the way the skin would lay in here, and I've got that ground down pretty good. I mean, it's not 100%. I can still feel just ever so slightly some highs and lows, but it's close enough that once the flange folds over with some seam seal and epoxy, it will virtually disappear. Now this inside angle is pretty difficult to grind. You've got to be careful because you just can't get anything in there, and you have to be careful when you're grinding, because if you're not paying attention, you'll take too much metal out of an area that may be beside of it. So you really have to watch what you're doing when you're doing this grinding. And this 14 gauge is a little bit more forgiving than say 20 gauge or something, just because it is a little bit thicker metal. If that was 20 gauge, we would really be taking our time with it. And I get a lot of questions about what I'm using. This is a Norton 89034, and I'll put links in the description below to this, because I get a lot of comments from prior videos. People can't find this, so I'll put a link down in the description. This is a 2-inch grinding disc, courtesy of Jeff Lindsay. I call it a Jeff Lindsay grinding disc. Works really well. Last a long time. I appreciate it, Jeff. And this is the smaller one, and I use it a lot when I'm first getting started, like at this place right here where I have ground down the weld, I'll come in here with that small one and I'll just ride right along here until it gets to where it touches down. And then I'll switch over to this. Now on the inside angle, sometimes I'll go straight to the bigger disc because I'll use the edge of it to work it in. But what I also do on these is I save the ones that I wear down. This actually started life as a 2-inch grinding disc, just like this one. But you'll notice you wear the edges down first, and then once you wear the edges down, you're ready for a new disc. But you've still got a lot of material left here that you can get some life out of. Well, that's when I trim them down with a pair of scissors and I use them here. Same thing, this is I believe either 36 or 50 grit. I'd have to look because I have used them both. This is made by 3M, and these are made by Norton, and they're 80 grit disc. And I'll switch off between the more aggressive disc to the 80 grit, and you can see here a perfect example. This is a 2-inch grinding disc that has a little bit of use, but you can see the edges starting to go. And this is one that I've pretty much got my money's worth out of as a 2-inch. And I've just cut it down to where now it's, I think it's a 1-inch, I think. But you can see right now it'll fit good on this and get a little bit more life out of it. Here's a 3M one that's just about gone, and you can tell I've really got my money's worth out of that one. So it's probably not even worth running anymore. Probably running the air compressor way more than I should using this. So guys, that's what we're looking like. I still got to do final grind on this part and do some cleanup up in here, and we'll be wrapping this up. So I'm gonna do that off camera, and I'm gonna bring you back and show you what it looks like. Okay, YouTube, here's our first look at the skin setting on the repaired driver's side frame. Now with this repaired flange, I'll have plenty for it to fold over onto. I've also hammered and dollied this area. Okay, so you guys have already seen the top. Just one last look. So here's a look at the bottom, and I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out.